was a lot of conversations around Mox Opal going into these bans. And what I wanted to take a look at is, even though we're still pretty recent into it, it's barely been 2 weeks, I wanted to see where Mox Opal ultimately lands out. A lot of conversations around how eventually Mox Opal will probably be rebanned, or just at the end of the day, it is a Mox. It probably needs to go in some way, shape, or form. But I believe in the modern format, there is room for it, because even outside of the Breach decks, I think the universal opinion was, yes, Mox Opal is powerful, but Breach was the most powerful Mox deck by a mile. The rest of the Mox decks were nowhere near that. But there is still space for it, because combo can exist with Mox Opal, especially in a world where energy's at the top. Combo needs to be able to answer things. So where does this all land us with one of the most powerful artifacts in the modern age of gaming? Well, for Magic the Gathering at least. And that's what I wanted to take a look at with this powerful thing here. We're going to take a brief look at the modern metagame and try and suss out where we're at. This is going to be an exploratory video. It's not necessarily going to be one that lands on an opinion as to whether or not it's broken, but really open the floodgates. We still have so much testing to do, so much metagame to play, especially with Tarkir pretty much just here. There's going to be a lot of iteration through those, a lot of dragon shenanigans, and we got a whole new Mox in that too. It probably won't be that playable, but I don't want to speak too quick here. So if anything, leave a like down below and comment if you believe kind of that Mox from Tarkir Dragonstorm will actually have a legitimately good impact, or maybe bad impact, an impact in the modern format. So first and foremost, modern metagame. If we look at the top, combo exists, big mana exists, aggro exists, mid-range and control in some fashion as well. It's all there. When we peak at top 10, Affinity scoots in at the top 30, 30 days, sorry, I should say top 10, and it's able to establish itself as the Mox Opal deck. No other deck in here is playing Mox Opal. Eldrazi ramp gets a little asterisk, which we're going to talk about in a second. But largely speaking, again, all of the archetypes are relatively unique. They have their own packages, and honestly, it does lend to a sense of variety. Obviously, energy is the best deck in the format right now, and it is so by a mile, almost 15% of the metagame. Once we start approaching 20%, then I feel like we start getting into a problem, but there are answers to it. Again, the combo decks traditionally are really good against energy. Energy still has solutions to them, but even the big mana decks are doing really well. Eldrazi is just a great package overall. Amy the Titan consistently just ends up being one of the best decks in any modern metagame whatsoever. And we have a fun little taxes mid-range style deck always peeking its ugly head when it comes to that. So shout out to the fact that Mill is actually near the top as well. You always gotta love to see it. But when it comes to our very first Mox Opal deck, we're gonna take a look at Affinity, and it really is off the backbone of Kappa Cannoneer, in my opinion. It just ends up being one of the single greatest threats you can have. And so Mox Opal doesn't necessarily actually lend to the brokenness of Kappa Cannoneer because of how it's worded. It's improvised, not Affinity. And so you get that balance with it. But if Kappa Cannoneer lands, I feel like a lot of modern decks do struggle to remove this. So it's really a race against this. When you look at the modern versions of Affinity right now, it's Azorius in many ways. It's usually Azorius for the sake of interaction, and primarily blue for its threat and primary package. You're looking at Tameo for a little bit of legendary kind of enabling, but also that's for kind of the Mox Ambers. Emery, just a natural inclusion in all artifact-based strategies these days. Kappa Cannoneer is your top end threat, and some range of likely 2 to 4 thought monitors in these lists. Metallic Rebukes for interaction, thought cast as kind of sorcery speed, or not sorcery speed, sorcery versions of thought monitor, and the rest of the package kind of makes sense. It's Urza Saga packages, a little bit of interaction. We have the playset of Mox Opals. So really what these deck lists end up being is a fun little Affinity deck that, yes, has weaknesses to the Orcish Bowmasters of the world, which has been the biggest critique with the Affinity decks. As long as Orcish Bowmasters is in the format, then you're gonna have a real hard time playing any type of aggressive Affinity. Like my personal version of Affinity that I really like playing is Grixis Affinity. Let me know in the comment section down below if you want to see some gameplay of that. Imskur is just a fantastic card. 4 Imskurs, 4 thought monitors, 4 thought casts, just the dream for me. But again, if if Orcish Bowmasters and Dimir Murktide is going to be the second best deck in the format by percentages, it may not be the smartest thing in the world to do, but it will be a lot of fun. Regardless, it's not necessarily doing anything broken, it's accelerating. But as I mentioned, the thing I want to highlight is Kappa Cannoneer isn't broken with Mox Opal because of Improvise, but it is one of the payoffs that this Mox Opal deck wants to kind of put down and just run away with. It's nearly uninteractable. Board wipes aren't the most common thing in the metagame right now, or they're very conditional. Like you can think of like the energy board wipe that kind of destroys X, but that's where Affinity's at. Now, when it comes to the Eldrazi decks, this is where I put the asterisks on Eldrazi ramp, because there are versions that are artifact oriented playing Glaring Fleshraker. Now, for those of you legacy savants, you are probably more familiar with Glaring Fleshraker. That's a format I haven't visited in a little bit post ban. I'm kind of letting things I'm kind of letting things with that format just kind of pan out, but it seems like the Oops All Spells decks are still broken. So in a broken metagame, I think I can thrive with a little bit of painter shenanigans, but that's a whole different video. Glaring Fleshraker out of the legacy Eldrazi decks was a really powerful payoff, but in modern, the fast mana just isn't there. So it's hard to enable Fleshraker in a fast combo sense. So you tend to have to set up a couple of pieces, and that's where Mox Opal comes into play with something like, you got the Mistress Bauble, the Mox Opals of the world, Talisman of Curiosity for some ramp. And past that, you have obviously your Embercool, the Promise End, which tends to be the marquee top end threat that a lot of these decks are playing, but you're still playing the Sowing Myco Spawn, Devourer of Destiny alongside Kozilek's Command. Like the regular players are there, but there are Glaring Fleshraker, quote unquote, combo oriented versions of this deck that, it always just reminds me that as a mill player, Ensnaring Bridge comes in and out of my sideboard, and it just feels like Glaring Fleshraker is another giant middle finger to the answer that was hoping to be Ensnaring Bridge. And heck, even World Breaker is not color restricted, so it's able to exile that, and Kozilek's Command obviously is able to get around that with in conjunction with Glaring Fleshraker being able to create mana, draw cards, but also create the pings needed for the colorless creatures entering the battlefield. So it's a little unfortunate in all aspects, but regardless, a really powerful deck. The Eldrazi Ramp traditional package is still going to be the option of choice, but if energy does end up being like that much more powerful, the combo versions of this are really good against that. But I feel like the ramp versions, the traditional 4 of World Breaker, 4 of Embercool, drop the Fleshraker, and just work with the regular ramp package in general is probably better against a wider metagame. Next up is going to be Urza Lord High Artificer. The common theme amongst all my conversations is that the combo is going to be good if energy is good. And so Urza is a returning strategy that was almost quote unquote banned out of viability with something like Mox Opal being gone. But we can recognize that with something like Urza, you have your classic infinite combo where that second sentence of text that says tap an untapped artifact you control, add 1 blue, that's going to work in conjunction with something like Thopter Foundry. So Thopter Foundry is going to be a 2-mana artifact, pay 1, sacrifice a non-token artifact, put a 1/1 Thopter artifact creature token onto the field with flying. So you pay 1, you sacrifice an artifact, and create a Thopter. So 3 parts to that. What you're going to work that along with is the Sword of the Meek combo. This is a classic combo in Magic the Gathering. It says, if Sword of the Meek's in your graveyard, when a 1/1 creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may return Sword of the Meek from your graveyard to the battlefield and attach it to that creature. So pretty much, you tap the Sword of the Meek to the Thopter, to the Urza Lord High Artificer ability to create a blue. You use that blue from the Foundry to sacrifice the sword to create another 1/1, and then the Sword of the Meek returns, and you continue that loop over and over and over again. So you create an infinite amount of 1/1s. And so there were like other fun little options with this, where like there was a card, I think it was Time Sieve, where you can tap 5 untapped artifacts to like take an extra turn. I'm not sure if it was 5 non-creature artifacts, but I remember that was like a common line. And so you have an infinite combo. You have other ways to go about stuff like this. You're even playing Stock Up, a card that I think is really underexplored in Modern. It might have its limitations. It's doing insane in Vintage and has room in Legacy, but this card is just doing numbers overall when it comes to constructed Magic. So definitely would look out for something like this. A deck that's able to play Green Ponder and Stock Up is definitely one to pay attention to. We don't have like any force negations or anything like that in the main board, but it's probably just a fast enough combo when it comes to interacting. You have the classic Tameo, Emery, Amber, Mox Opal package. Like it almost feels like these 16 cards are the start of any artifact based strategy, or anyone that's absolutely blue based. We saw that in our Affinity deck as well. Somewhere between 14 to 16 cards in this option are probably where you want to be if you want to be blue based artifacts. Next up is going to be the Underworld Cookbook deck. So the Asmarano Marca Distana Kuldakar decks. Yes, I'm gonna flex the fact that I know how to say it, and I know how to say it properly. Okay, Underworld Cookbook, classic payoff, tap, discard a card, create a food token. In the cookbook decks, in a world where you are going to be creating a bunch of food. So food comes down, right? So you tap this, discard a card, create a food. That's 2 artifacts on the field already. You play Mox Opal, you got your mana. Perfect. When you are able to discard cards, you then are able to kind of get Asmo out as well. Ideally, you're discarding things like Oval Chase Daredevil, because when you discard this, an artifact enters the battlefield, which is a food, you can return Oval Chase from your graveyard to your hand. So just a recurable piece over and over again. In this deck specifically, you're playing Archon of Cruelty to work alongside Persist, so you have like a discard engine and some reanimate. You have some street rates as well when it comes to discarding things, which helps enable your Asmo, which then can help you tutor for the Underworld Cookbook. But also Monument of Endurance just ends up being a really powerful payoff. This card, low key, I feel like has done a lot more than people give it credit for. This card is a really, really good payoff. A lot of people have tried to explore this in the Hollow One decks as more of like a top end finisher. Whenever you discard a card, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. So you're going to be able to do this a max of 3 times this turn. But if you do it on your opponent's turn, it's going to count as well. So think about that for your Underworld Cookbook activations on your opponent's turn, your street rates at instant speed. You want to be thinking about that for Monument of Endurance. You can draw a card, create a treasure token, which is another artifact, another piece of mana, or each opponent loses 3. I don't know why I said opponent. Sorry, was that a little Canadian coming out of me? Who knows? Each opponent loses 3 life, which is a fantastic way to just like end the game. Again, Monument of Endurance just feels like one of those cards, super underrated. Not a lot of people are paying attention to. It's not broken, it's powerful, and it's an artifact that's going to count towards Mox Opal. Again, a situation where Mox Opal isn't necessarily doing anything broken. It's not enabling a crazy super fast combo in the sense of like Urza. It is in the sense that it's not necessarily directly related to the combo of Thopter Foundry, but it's an artifact based strategy that looks to use the blue package of the Emery, the Tameo, all that stuff. It's part of that Affinity package. But even alongside that, the Eldrazi decks aren't using it in that way either, although that can be quote unquote more combo oriented. It's like a fast burn finish that I like to think of as a combo finish, because you can get off to some ridiculous things when it comes to like large Kozilek's commands that are able to then tutor into another Kozilek's command. You just keep going. But in this case, this is more of a traditional combo where you're able to create a bunch of artifacts, get a bunch of food tokens out at the same time, discard a bunch to enable the Monument of Endurance. Just some really crazy fast interactions. And Asmo's kind of last line attack, sacrifice 2 food tokens to deal 6 damage, like get a creature deal 6 damage to itself. Like just fantastic. I mean, you can kill large Primeval Titans with it. It's a pretty solid number just to be able to have something deal 6 damage to itself. It's a fantastic thing. So the food decks are really solid when it comes to that. And heck, they're even paying the Urza Saga package because, of course, Underworld Cookbook is 1, Opal is 0. Why wouldn't you be playing this? So the food decks are doing really well. The last one that I want to bring up that I think is kind of interesting, I feel like this deck was one of them that really just died with like the bannings oh so long ago. But thanks to Mox Opal, is able to make a big comeback. And I think some people have their eyes on it. Bandit Pioneer, Bandit Explorer, Kethis the Hidden Hand is this combo deck that is kind of similar to the Breach decks. In a way, Kethis acts as like a really budget, weird Breach. So legendary creature Elf Advisor, Kethis the Hand is 3 mana for a 3/4 that says legendary spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Okay, great. So it's legendary and you're likely playing a legendary typo here. Exile 2 legendary cards from your graveyard until the end of turn. Each legendary card in your graveyard gains you may play this card from your graveyard. So you got to cast it out of your graveyard. But notice how it says each legendary card in your graveyard. So you can play legendary lands, but just not that relevant right now. Just bring it up for my commander players. But legendary cards, Mox Opal is a legendary card. Mox Amber is a legendary card. And so this is where we start to think of like Underworld Breach had an escape cost of 3 plus paying the cost. Kethis has a escape cost of 2 and even reduces the cost of your legendary spells. Now, you don't need that for Mox Opal, Mox Amber, but you will need that for your win conditions further down the line. Now, when it comes to how Kethis wins, long story short, you're going to be milling out your deck by like, recurring stuff like Mox Opal, Mox Amber. You're going to be milling yourself with Tamios, which is, or not Tamios, sorry, the Emery's. Emery's nice because it mills over 4 cards. It's not necessarily that it's going to mill over like all 4 cards are going to be legendaries, but you're going to be playing a large majority of them. Remember that Urza Saga is not legendary, but you have legendary lands like Takenuma, Otawara, things like that, right? So you have options like that are able to enable the Kethis. And so your ultimate win condition is going to be casting Jace the Perfected Mind over and over again. To my knowledge, because you're able to cast it out of your graveyard, you should just be able to cast this for 2. So in the sense that you pay 2 life, and it's reduced by 1, so it's just going to cost blue and a 1. You are going to be able to filter in different ways through, Mox Opal, Mox Amber. You have mana confluence and stuff, so it's not that hard to actually cast Kethis, but that is the ultimate win condition. You're playing 1 mana, you're playing green ponders, you're feeding your graveyard, obviously, and you're going to be grabbing something like Jace the Perfected Mind to mill your opponent out. And heck, even Jace the Perfected Mind for some level of value. The mind, mill yourself out, you need 1 more thing. Play the Jace -2, mill yourself some more, and draw 3 cards. Come on. It's a great win condition. So all in all, out of the sideboard, even if you manage to mill yourself out, Jace the Wielder of Mysteries is there as a legendary planeswalker. Thassa's Oracle would be in here if it was a legendary card, but regardless, Kethis Combo, I feel like is the combo to watch because of how close it imitates something like Underworld Breach. Now, again, it's not Underworld Breach by a mile. It's not 1 for 1, but it's close in how it works with this deck. And I'm really interested to see where Kethis Combo lands overall. We even see in the 5-0 list, I'm going to move my camera here, Aspiring Spike hit 30th in the Modern Challenge with it recently. So clearly, if Spike is willing to do this, and that's on the 4th, so I can imagine right now, as the recording of this video, it is the 9th. I imagine folks are going to be trying out this deck a little bit more. We even had a Modern Challenge here, 11th place, Wolf 222. So we're going to start to see Kethis Combo, in my mind, make its way up in the modern metagame and find new ways to iterate, find better lists. And this could end up being the new iteration of Breach. But there obviously are a lot of ways to counter something like this. It's not perfect. You need Kethis. And you also, when you play Kethis, you actually have to be able to cast Kethis. So whereas the Breach deck had a lot less restrictions in terms of its mana cost and how it needed to go off, the Kethis deck has a lot more restrictions in the fact that you need Kethis, which is not that bad in a world that can, in a deck that can like fix itself really well, but also you need to be able to cast Kethis, and also the cards that you're exiling have to be legendary. It can't be anything. You can't just exile your lands and stuff like that. So a lot more restrictive. But again, for like the 3rd or 4th time, I want to just keep in everyone's mind, I feel like Kethis Combo has a lot more to do in this modern metagame. I feel like it's a solid tier 2 deck in terms of what it's able to do as a combo with Mox Opal. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. This was my initial exploratory video on the format of where Modern is with Mox Opal and where Mox Opal can just fit into everything. Is it the combo enabler that all people fear? Are they just tier 2 decks that people don't need to be too afraid of? And are we going to get a reprint of Mox Opal anytime soon? I don't know. Can we figure out a logical way to reprint this? Because ain't no way they're putting Mox Opal in a standard legal set. But is there a way that they're ever going to put it as a special guest or something like that at rare? I don't think so. Even special guests are like super rare as well. Like, is there some type of non-premium way for them to reprint Mox Opal not at Mythic? Like, they need to print it at rare in a regular set. That's like the only way we're bringing Mox Opal down, and we need to like overprint the living butt crack out of that set. I don't know. That and Lotus Petal and Pauper, please. We need some reprints. But regardless, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Before I go off on a whole new rant, have a great rest of your day.